All right, everyone. So today I wanted to keep on with the next set of mouth parts, in this case the maxillae. Now that we've done the antennae, we'll go right back into it. So this is a much more complicated part of the mouth than the mandibles were. If we go back to our original drawing here to go over the mouth parts again, this is the labrum. The mandibles are next down. This yellow part here, this is the maxillae, and then below that is the labium. Generally, with the insect head intact, the only part of the maxillae which is visible are the palps. But if we zoom in on this other picture, so this is the blown apart head. Let's zoom up here. We've got the labrum again. This is the labium, the upper and lower lips. These are the mandibles, and these are the maxillae. So this little, chain appendage on the end, this is called the palp. This is usually the only part that is visible, unless you pull apart the mouth parts or dissect off the maxillae, in which case then you'll see the entire thing. With that in mind, we will start with a close-up drawing of what a maxilla looks like. Maxillae is plural, maxilla is singular. So this whole thing is a maxilla. The maxillae are like the mandibles in that they are derived from originally a set of appendages which have then been modified into mouth parts. Unlike the mandible, it's much more obvious in the maxillae that this is a set of jointed appendages. Like the maxillae, this is innervated into the subesophageal ganglion, just like all the other true mouth parts. So the mandibles, maxillae, and the labium. How you can tell that this is originally an appendage is it still has most of the same pieces of it, original pieces of the appendage. So these two at the base form what is known as the coccipodite. On legs, we call it a coxa. It's the base of the leg, and this has been split into two sections. This is the cardo, and this is the stipes or stipes, depending on how you say it. And this originally would have been the base of the leg, and it is now the base of the maxilla. The palp here, this whole section here is called the palp, or the palpus. And normally, this will sometimes, well, not normally, but sometimes this will be referred to as the telopodite, which literally means the end of the foot. And each of these segments can be directly analogous to a section of the leg. So in this case, this base would be the coxa. This would be the trochanter, the pretarsus, the tarsus, the tibia, and the femur. So this would be the trochanter here. Not all of these sections are always present in the palpus. Sometimes the palpus is only one or two segments. Sometimes it's much longer. These two inner lobes are called the galea and the licinia. So this is the galea, and this is the licinia. These are inner lobes which do have their own set of muscles, and their shape and size is highly dependent on the actual diet of the insect. So this sort of drawing here is a generic version of what an insect's maxilla will look like, but it's rarely ever this simple. Other points before we move on to the next picture. This point up here is the articulation. This is the articulation with the cranium. This is where it attaches and moves. This is a ball joint, just like in your hip or your shoulder, where it moves backwards and forwards, actually embedded into the jaw. And then there will be, on the next photo or the next drawing, a lot of musculature which is attached to the maxilla. The maxilla kind of acts as an extra set of teeth, small teeth compared to the mandible, but also as the major manipulation organ to get food positioned into the mouth correctly, which is why it still has this palpus on it. The labium also assists with this. The labium itself has a pair of palpi, or palpi, a pair of palps, I guess would be the correct term. But the maxilla is doing the majority of the work. Additionally, the Licinia can have a number of teeth or lobes attached to it, which will help grind the food. In a lot of plant-eating insects, the Licinia will be much enlarged, and it will have bristles or teeth to kind of pulp fruit material or plant material before it enters between the mandibles and into the mouth. So on the next photo, or the next drawing here, we have all the muscle attachments. The maxilla has a ton of muscle attachments on the outside and interiorly. So let's pick a different color so things are easier to see. First, we'll start with the exterior muscles. So we have the ventral adductors, and both of them are attached to the tentorium. Let's do green. Both of these are attached to the tentorium, which are the inner invaginations of the cranium that act as a skeletal support in the center of the head. These ventral adductors will more or less pull the maxilla towards the middle of the head, so to assist with chewing. And then you have an anterior rotator, a cranial flexor of the Licinia, and a posterior rotator here. This is the posterior rotator going this way, which will pull in a couple different directions. It'll either pull it up and in, or pull the Licinia up and in. These are attached to the cranial walls, not to the tentorium. So this is actually like the wall of the skull. In the interior of the maxilla, you have also another set of muscles for the Licinia. You have the stipioflexor of the Licinia. To pull this, again, more inward or outward, we have the levitator of the palpus, and this pulls the palp back and in. And you have the flexor of the galea, which pulls the galea up. Additionally, each segment of the palpus will have its own set of muscles in order to manipulate at every segment. So this is a much more complicated section than the mandible was. So again, we'll do this in green. It is not uncommon for the galea to be much enlarged, taking up this whole section of where the galea and Licinia are. So that is not uncommon. It's a fleshier lobe, and it will take up the whole section to act more as like a giant finger. Frequently when this happens, the Licinia will be moved upward. It will, one, be enlarged, but it will be moved more medially and more proximally. So it'll take up this whole section here. And frequently, like I said before, it'll be covered in teeth or spikes for pulping prey or fruit. So either teeth here. Sometimes the Licinia will be kind of one long tooth, and with just brushwork on it, lots of cetal hairs for either tasting or pulping. Let's stop there with the maxillae. Next time we'll move on to the labium. Thanks so much.